Charlotte Hale had never imagined that her life would narrow down to $3, a carpetbag, and a prayer whispered into the wind. Yet as she stepped off the dusty stagecoach and onto the sun-baked earth of Dustfall, Texas, she felt something deep inside her, the fragile but stubborn belief that life still had room to turn around. The town stretched before her like a faded memory, weathered wooden buildings, horses tied to hitching posts, the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, and the smell of baked dust rising from the ground. Her feet ached, her mind spun, but she pressed forward. She only wanted a job enough to earn a roof, a meal, and the chance to stop running from a past that kept clawing at her heels. She didn't expect hope to look like a ranch on the edge of the desert or a cowboy standing in its shadow. She first saw him near the horse corral as a breeze stirred the dry grass around them. He was tall, shoulders shaped by labor, with sun-darkened skin and the kind of expression that spoke of both sorrow and strength. His hat shaded a pair of eyes that looked like storm clouds, gray, unreadable, but strangely gentle. Charlotte hesitated, nerves prickling her spine. She had begged for work before, been turned away more often than she liked to remember, yet there was something about this ranch, something about this man, that nudged her forward. "Sir," she said, trying to steady her voice, "I heard you're looking for help. I can cook, clean, mend, and do whatever you need. I just need a chance." The cowboy didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her with an intensity that made her wonder if she had something on her face. But his gaze wasn't judgmental, it was searching, as though he was trying to read the truth of her soul before he trusted her with the truth of his own. Finally, he spoke in a voice roughened by wind and loss. "You'll have it," he said slowly. "The job. The food. The home." Then, after a long breath, he added words Charlotte never expected to hear, "After you become my wife tonight." Charlotte froze as if the world had stopped spinning. At first she thought she had misheard him, but his expression didn't soften into humor or cruelty. He meant it. Every word. Her heart pounded until she felt it in her fingertips. "Why would you say something like that?" she whispered. "I don't even know you." The cowboy nodded once, as though he expected the question. "My name is Eli Sutton," he said. "And you're right. You don't know me. But my ranch is about to be taken. The bank gave me a deadline of sunrise. I need a legal partner to keep it. Someone honest. Someone with nothing to gain except safety and work. Someone who needs a chance just as much as I do." The truth of his words trembled in the air between them, raw, vulnerable, impossible. Charlotte felt anger, confusion, and a strange, quiet empathy all at once. Life had pushed her to desperate places before, but marriage? Marriage to a stranger in exchange for shelter? It felt reckless, but so did hunger. So did homelessness. And something about the way Eli stood there, unarmed by ego, stripped of pride, speaking with a sincerity she rarely heard from anyone, made her believe that he wasn't trying to own her. He was trying to survive. And he saw that she was trying to do the same. Instead of answering immediately, Charlotte asked to walk the ranch. Eli agreed. They walked side by side through the wide fields as the sun dipped lower, casting a warm gold across the land. Horses grazed quietly, their tails flicking in the evening breeze. The ranch house stood tall but worn, like it had fought too many battles but still refused to fall. Charlotte felt something stir in her chest, some mix of sadness, longing, and recognition. This place, with its chipped paint and lonely fences, reminded her of every forgotten part of herself she had tried to abandon on the long road from Missouri. "Why me?" she finally asked. Eli stopped walking and leaned against the fence, his jaw tightening before he spoke. "Because you look like someone life hasn't been kind to. And someone who'd still choose kindness anyway." His words hit her harder than she expected. She swallowed. Hard. Because kindness was the only thing she had left, that and her stubborn refusal to let her life become a tragedy she didn't write. As they continued walking, Eli told her about his parents' deaths, the drought that took half the cattle, and the bank that took everything but the land beneath his boots. Charlotte told him about losing her family to illness, her work as a seamstress, the employer who withheld wages, and the long road she traveled searching for somewhere she could matter. The conversation was hesitant at first, two wounded souls treading lightly around the scars they carried. But step by step, the walls between them softened. By the time they reached the porch, Charlotte felt something unexpected, a small but undeniable sense of trust. Still, the choice before her felt overwhelming. Marriage was a covenant, a promise, a binding of futures. She couldn't enter it lightly, not even for safety. But as she stood on that porch, the desert wind lifting her hair, something shifted inside her. Eli wasn't offering ownership. He wasn't demanding love. He was offering partnership in the one language he believed the bank would recognize. And more importantly, he was offering her a place in a story that didn't end in fear. "You'd let me go later?" she asked softly. "When you're safe?" Eli nodded. "If you want. I'd never keep someone who doesn't want to stay." That honesty, it broke something beautifully inside her. With a breath that felt like the first one she had taken in years, Charlotte made her choice. "All right," she whispered. "I'll marry you." Eli's eyes didn't spark with triumph. Instead, they softened with something like gratitude, deep, reverent, and quiet. The town preacher agreed to perform the ceremony on the ranch porch under the rising moon. There were no flowers, no feast, no celebration, just two people standing in the glow of lantern light, holding on to hope as if it were more valuable than gold. As Charlotte listened to the vows, her hands trembled in Eli's. But something remarkable happened when he repeated the words. She felt warmth. His voice was steady but gentle, as though he wasn't just saying vows, he was promising her dignity, safety, and a life where she wouldn't walk alone. When the ceremony ended, they didn't kiss. Instead, Eli simply touched her hands and murmured, "Thank you." It wasn't a storybook beginning, but it was real. Real enough for her heart to believe she had not made a mistake. The next day, Charlotte rose before dawn and worked with a determination she hadn't felt in years. She cleaned the kitchen, cooked breakfast, and mended a torn saddle strap. Eli watched quietly from a distance, as though afraid that speaking might break whatever fragile trust had formed between them. When a bank representative arrived at noon, Charlotte stood by Eli's side with steady resolve. She was his wife now, at least on paper, and the ranch was legally protected. The man left with a scowl, but he left empty-handed. The ranch was safe. And for the first time since she had arrived, Charlotte saw Eli smile. It wasn't a big smile, just the faint lift of a man who had been carrying too much for too long, but it was enough to warm the entire yard. Days passed. Weeks followed. What began as necessity slowly blossomed into something gentler. Charlotte found comfort in the quiet rhythm of ranch life, the sound of horses snorting in the morning, the soft creak of the porch boards, the glow of lamplight during supper. Eli began to talk more, sharing stories of his parents, his hopes for the ranch, the dreams he had buried beneath hardship. Charlotte shared her fears, her lingering grief, and the fragile wish to belong somewhere. Neither of them named the feeling growing between them, but they both felt it in the small moments, her laughter when Eli taught her to ride, his attentive quiet when she sewed by the fire, the way their hands brushed when passing dishes at dinner. But the most unexpected moment came one evening when a storm rolled in from the west. Lightning split the sky as Eli raced to secure the horses. Charlotte, soaked from rain, grabbed rope and ran to help him despite his shouts for her to stay inside. Together they fought the wind, tying down tarps and guiding panicked animals into shelter. When the last horse was safe, they collapsed breathlessly against the stable wall, rainwater streaming down their faces. Eli looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing not just the woman who helped save his ranch, but the woman who had saved him from a loneliness he never admitted he carried. "Charlotte," he murmured, voice trembling in a way she had never heard before. "You didn't have to help." Charlotte brushed hair from her eyes and whispered back, "Yes, I did. You're my partner. Storms aren't meant to be faced alone." At that, something inside him broke open, raw and trembling. And for the first time since their wedding night, he reached for her, not out of need, but out of choice. She took his hand without hesitation. Their marriage, once a contract of survival, slowly became a sanctuary built from trust, shared labor, and the quiet belief that two broken people could help heal each other. The transformation wasn't sudden or dramatic, it happened in small moments, soft moments, the kind that sneak into the heart without asking permission. And as the seasons changed, Charlotte realized that she was no longer looking for a place to belong. She had found one, here, with him. Years later, when people in town whispered their story, how a desperate woman became the wife of a desperate cowboy in one night, many assumed it was a tale of convenience. But Charlotte knew the truth. The marriage had started as a bargain, yes. But what grew from it was something far stronger: compassion, partnership, and the kind of love that isn't loud or flashy but steady and life-changing. Love that came from kindness freely given, not demanded. And every time Charlotte walked the ranch she once feared, she felt a deep, humbling gratitude. She had asked only for a job. But life, in a rare moment of generosity, had given her something far greater: a home, a purpose, and a man who cherished her not because of a contract, but because of the person she had allowed herself to become by his side. In the end, Charlotte learned something she wished she could whisper to everyone who ever felt lost or unworthy: sometimes the world is harsh, sometimes it takes more than it gives, but kindness has a way of finding its way back, often in the most unexpected places. Sometimes even on a dusty porch at sunset, in the form of a cowboy whose greatest act of generosity was offering a woman not just a job, but a chance at a life where she was finally seen, valued, and loved. And that, she believed with all her heart, was the miracle she never expected, but the one she would spend the rest of her life honoring.